Everybody was trying to solve a problem saying, look, this is what we have. This is the problem. How do we fix it? I didn't have access to a lot of that. So I came at it. People say, wow, you're really thinking outside the box. I never saw the box. We were so far removed from anything weapons storage. We looked at it as, okay, it's a storage problem. We literally went to Home Depot, walked the aisles and say, how does America store stuff? And just took notes and just started looking at things and came up with a very simple solution. Their problem they had was complexity. Tom Kubiniec, President and CEO of Secure It Tactical. Quick background, I was a professional musician, guitar player out of high school. Tendonitis ended my career. I got into sales and then into tech firms, and I built Jet Computer Products and Greenline Data, where we sold everything from computer supplies to data security products. When the HIPAA laws came out, we ran a business, SecureLaptopStorage.com. We were one of the largest sellers of secure devices or devices for securing hard drives and laptops in financial institutions and in medical and educational. And then based just on a fluke phone call, I got into weapon storage, having never owned a gun. And I just thought it was cool. There's a tech side to firearms that I found kind of intriguing. And that was in 2001. I knew nothing about it. We started dabbling in government contracting and it was a steep learning curve. We presented an idea to U.S. Army Special Forces Command. They loved it. By 2011, we were a primary supplier to the U.S. military for armory design and weapons storage. As of today, I'm the leading authority in small arms storage, armory design services. And we went into consumer products in 2016. And consumer products is now about 85% of our business. And that going into that channel really opened up the company. We made Inc. Magazine's fastest growing companies in America twice in 3 years. And it's been a crazy ride. It's been a lot of fun. It's a fun business. I've got just an unbelievable staff. And our mission is to make sure every firearm in America is properly locked, properly secured. If we can achieve that, we'll make this country a safer place.
Can you walk me through that story about a fluke phone call? Yeah, I'm looking at your background. If anyone's watching the video, there is an armory behind the armory guy in the podcast. And you said you never owned a gun before.
I do now, but at the time,
you own a few. Yeah.
We were. So I was running Greenline Data, and which was started off as a telemarketing business selling B2B computer supplies, backup tapes, laser printer supplies, papers, all the supplies that data processing departments would use. I got into tape racks and data storage, physical storage of actual backup tapes. Younger listeners don't remember, but companies used to have thousands and thousands of tapes used to back up their systems that had to all be stored and organized so they could retrieve them. TapeRack.com was one of our websites, and we were one of the largest sellers of those, morphed into laptop storage when the HIPAA laws came out. So I was selling secure cabinets and secure products for locking up hard drives and laptop computers and all that type of material. A guy called me and he said, "Can you store an MP5?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm a sales guy. "Sure. What's an MP5?" My next question, he said, "A little submachine gun." I started laughing. I'm going, "Who is this?" And he was with the FBI, and they were struggling with weapon storage. I said, we talked for about 15 minutes. I said, "Give me a week." And I started doing research. This is long before Google, back in the days of Yahoo and some of those older search platforms. But I knew nothing about this, but I started digging into it, and I found all these references that the military was struggling. They were transitioning from the M16, which is a standard battle rifle, to the M4, which is really a weapon system. It's a modular system with a lot of attachments. There's a lot more parts, a lot more equipment coming into armories. I just thought it was fascinating. I thought, what a cool thing to do. I was never in the service, but this was, Gulf War time. And I kind of felt if I could do something to help our war, these guys were fighting for, America. Whether you question whether it was the right thing to do or not, that's your own decision. But we felt we could make a difference. So I just started looking at weapon storage, and I worked with one of my tape rack manufacturers. We were making a very simple storage solution. In 2007, we won a contract with U.S. Army Special Forces Command to survey all their armories. I spent 18 months on the road. I went to every armory, met with every armorer, sat with him for a day, interviewing them, watching the workflow. And that's when we really, that was the deep dive into what's going wrong with military armories. And it was during that time I designed and patented the U.S., what we call the Secure Tactical Weapon Storage Platform. Now it's simply called Cradle Grid. And we showed it to them. They loved it. And the place just took off. I think one of the biggest reasons we were so successful, all my design work was done having not really seen at the time weapon racks. Everybody was trying to solve a problem saying, look, this is what we have. This is the problem. How do we fix it? I didn't have access to a lot of that. So I came at it. People say, wow, you're really thinking outside the box. I never saw the box. We were so far removed from anything weapon storage. We looked at it as, okay, it's a storage problem. We literally went to Home Depot, walked the aisles and say, how does America store stuff? And just took notes and just started looking at things and came up with a very simple solution. I'm a big believer the simplest solutions are the ones that withstand the test of time. And what they were their problem they had was complexity. And we took, they had weapon racks that was a modular rack with, two different competitors. One had 87 different brackets, the other had 270 different components. We designed our system with one moving part, our upper cradle, which can adjust, no tools required. So an armorer can walk up to a weapon rack with anything from, a small submachine gun up to a large shoulder launch rocket system or, belt-fed machine gun and put it in the rack, adjust it on the fly, real time, and walk away. And that solved a huge problem for the military. And their armories now are functioning much better. We took all of that methodology into the consumer market in 2016. And that's when things really took off for us, the consumer market. I didn't realize how big it was. And we had stayed out of consumer. The reason we went into consumer products, sequestration, this is 2013, 14, it was the forced government cutbacks, financial cutbacks. And when that hit, we darn near went out of business. We were rocking and rolling. I went about 9 months without getting a single order, making payroll, paying all of our bills, just bleeding cash badly. And it was at that point that we got to do something and said, let's go into consumer products. The lesson to that is it's at times of struggle that you sometimes see your best opportunities. And I'm a big believer in don't deny somebody their struggle. Because if the government had come in and said, hey, Tom, we're going to do a grant program. We realize things are really tight to help you keep your business running. We need your products. I probably wouldn't have gone into retail. But I had sold everything, every asset I owned. I mean, at that time, I had a plane. I'm a pilot. I was flying all over the Northeast. And we were at a point of selling our house and moving to a tiny little farmhouse. I had three kids. They were pretty young at the time because I was out of money. I mean, it was getting bad. And we just realized, you know what? Let's try consumer products. I started doing research. The military is maybe a $17 to $20 million a year business. Consumer products is just shy of $1 billion. So, the scale of this was so big and we started doing it and things really took off. Yeah, so now go ahead.
A lot to unpack there, but I think that's just really interesting that you built your whole business off of this. There's a really great book called I think it's called Demand Driven Sales, where a lot of sales efforts are like, hey, we see that this market is a total addressable market. Let's just make a product and force feed it into the market and we can make money that way. And that's definitely one way to make money. But the whole premise of that book is using ethnographic research where you are actually just observing how people behave with what the current products are. Mm-hmm. And then the demand, the thing that they're not talking about, but where the gravity is in the market and serving that need. And that takes a lot less effort to service because the demand's already there. I had another guest, he called it traffic. I go where the traffic is. I always do traffic before product. If I see like a traffic,
Mhm.
and I'm from Utah, and for the last 20 years, it's been like the road construction capital of the world, and building out the freeways and stuff. But could tell that, hey, if there's a ton of traffic in one area, that's probably time to make the road wider, because like maybe like new neighborhoods are coming up and we need to build out the city. That's what I'm hearing from like your end, that like you solve for traffic, and then for a little bit you just stayed in that lane because the government made it easy. You had
Yeah.
contracts, you're able to work that way. And so if it wasn't for those government cutbacks, you like wouldn't have gone into retail then.
No, you see the lane analogy is great because all of a sudden the road was gone. It just turned off. But it's now our efforts. I'm a real contrarian. I do things differently. I'm a different kind of CEO. I run the company very differently than, I don't have a corporate background. My background is a professional guitar player.
Yeah.
And I've never worked in a big company. So I really approach things very differently. Our challenge has always been when the consumer products is the mindset of the gun owner is a gun safe is a big, heavy thing that goes in your basement. It's full of drywall and carpeting. It'll protect your guns from thieves and from fire. Most of that is nonsense, and they don't realize it. I'm coming from a background with the military where my requirements are very specific. What I have to build to, my regulations, my everything has to be right, or I have to redo it. We brought that mindset to the consumer products. Our safes are ultra lightweight. They're adaptable, they're modular, they're flexible. Everything a gun safe isn't. So we're up against a mindset in the gun owner or ownership community, and the vast majority of gun owners think we're nuts. They think this just is wrong. So our sale is an educational sale. I always tell everyone, when people know what we know, our product is the only product that really solves the problem. Our challenge in marketing and sales is educating a group of people that they're not asking to be educated. And I'm coming into this saying, I just come out saying, hey guys, fire ratings are nonsense. A 1 hour fire rated safe lasts about 2 to 3 minutes in a hot fire. And people don't sit there and go, wow, really? They say, no, you're nuts. You got to be so careful with that, because I'm challenging beliefs. And if you just spent, $2,300 on this great big monster safe, you don't want to hear a guy like me say, yeah, that was a bad buy. So, we've been doing this for a while now, but it's still the same challenge for us: is how do you challenge what people believe without making them upset, and then get them into a point where they're open to learning. And once we can get them to where they're open to learn, and they'll start looking at our material not from a standpoint of conflict of, no, this has to be wrong, this is BS, but more from, wow, I didn't know that. That's our big challenge. We're actually doing some major shifts in how we brand and market the company right now. We have a new website, everything new will be changing in the next 6 weeks, really to drive this. It's a position of authority, and that's what we're taking. I'm positioning myself as a leading authority in small arms storage and gun safes and in weapon storage, gun storage, and we're doing a lot of work now so that all the AI tools, when you use an AI bot or any of the AI tools to do research, it comes back as I'm the expert. And if people see that, or they see my reference to me or to Secure It as experts, they're now open. When they start reading some of our material, they're like, wow, instead of being angry about, the conflict, they're like, wow, I didn't know that. That's actually a good idea. I'm finding it's not easy to do, but it does work. It takes time to win people over. We came out of the gate in retail and it just took off. And those were the early adopter buyers, just loved what we did. Now we're starting to shift into this,
Top
your
of the
mass
bell
market.
curve.
Yeah, we're getting into that mid-tier buyer, which is your mass market. And it's a much more difficult proposition for us. We're winning the war, but it's a grind.
Yeah. I've noticed that when you hear about these stories where it's like a release valve, like you share your product and there is like this kind of success that like tricks you at the start, because
Oh yeah.
you immediately run into the people that think like you, have philosophically the same ideas, but the business has to grow in order. You're either growing or you're dying. So you have to be able to grow the business. And then eventually you work your way through those early adopters in the bell curve. And when you get to mass market, these are people that like don't usually make their own decisions. They usually wait until the established brands
Yep.
are there. And what you're telling me is that as you're moving to a more like mass market segment, that brand's important.
It is. And the funny thing is, I've done a lot of research on this concept of early adopter, innovative buyer, early adopter, early majority, late majority, and why they all buy. And, we're focused on innovative and early adopter buyers is where we're getting our business. We want mass market. But then I look at myself. The iPhone came out, many, many years ago. I didn't get one till it'd been out for 7 years. I was doing my own research on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't I buy one right away? Well, maybe I'm not an early adopter buyer. I wanted to wait till it was out there for a while. I love my iPhone. I use a lot of Apple products now. So I kind of look at myself for, okay, I went through this, I didn't buy early. What held me back? I'm trying to go back to that mindset and apply some of that to what we're trying to do. A lot of that, I think, comes down to total market, your penetration into the market. If you listen to, is it Simon Sinek has talked a lot about it, you need to get to 9 to 12% market, that much of the market before the mass market will say, you know what, once somebody who's a mass market buyer has a couple of friends who have this new different product, they'll say, you know what, this is something, and now they're going to take a look at it. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We've done a lot of work. How do we incentivize our customers to talk about us? Because our number one source for all new business is installed base. Most of our customers come from, or they hear about Secure from our customers who are using our products. And we do a lot of outbound marketing, but at the end of the day, our number one source of new business is not coming from our efforts. It's coming from branded search that we're not driving. Our customers are driving it by showing they buy our safes and they show hey, check this system out, man. This thing works so cool. And like, wow, that is cool. And now they come and they search for Secure It.
Do you incentivize any of the early adopters to
it's hard. We've looked at different ways of doing it, and you have to be able to automate anything like this. You can't do this. It has to be a system in place so that it runs. I can't hire 50 people to try to do this. And most of the stuff you try to do it, most of the systems to try to do this, to me, are clunky or cheesy would be the word. I'm not real happy with how they work. So it's, I think for us, it's about being authentic, being who we are, and just continuing driving our message that there's a better way to store firearms. Modern firearms really require modern storage. And the traditional gun safe was designed 75 years ago. It's never changed. And it really is a horrible way to store modern firearms. Optics, you got attachments, consumers mirror military 10 to 12 years later. And consumer firearms are now becoming modular, adaptable. We got a lot of equipment, a lot of electronic equipment coming into gun safe storage. So our systems can handle all of that. It's how do we get this information out without alienating the buyer by getting too in his face. Early on, I came out of the gate, a lot of video, a lot of content. It was like, hey guys, fire ratings are bullshit. Hey, this, just, and it was the wrong approach. I pissed a lot of people off. We sold, and the company was growing, but we've now I've stepped back, and now we're looking at as, okay, we are the position of authority. Let's just confidently talk about our principles and how we do things. And everything we do is based on, 23 years of building military armories. So we just leverage all of that experience and calmly and boldly walk forward, as opposed to being antagonistic or going after the market more aggressively.
And like incendiary, trying to be polarizing. Yeah, I've definitely that there's always that temptation to do that because it gives you like the easy engagement, but it doesn't give you the right customers, or it gets you too early into the funnel
Yeah.
with a customer that could be a person that could be a good customer, but you're gonna lose them and get the go 2 steps back by putting them off the wrong way. And the
Yeah.
yeah, you make me think about this, the Maxim pound the stone, where it's about you see a stone cutter and you see them like chipping away at a stone and nothing's happening, and they hit it 100 times and nothing happens, and then on the 101st time the stone cracks in half,
Yep.
and you know that it was the 99 or 100 time like hits before that before it cracks open. I've
Yep.
noticed like anything that's like worth doing. What I'm hearing here, there's a couple like threads I want to pull on. Like the first one is like the concept of just patience. Like when you go into
Mhm.
business for yourself and you're working on a product, a lot of it is like a marriage. Like you are building something enduring. This isn't
Mhm.
something that you're like a good business isn't something you flip. It's a grind most of the
Yep.
time. It's just doing like boring, tedious work over a long period of time to build that asset and that brand. The second thing is like actually being different, like competitive differentiation. And I didn't actually expect looking at your intake form to be like, oh, actually, there's like a design narrative here in this story, that because it's one thing to say that you're different, but it's a whole nother thing to be completely different. And
Yeah.
it like the what I really admire about your story is that you said I didn't know anything about arm storage, and that actually led to you making a different product, which was like a one component modular army rack. And there's this quote about Andreessen Horowitz. I think it's Mark Andreessen said that like you look at most of these founders that like go into these spaces, the story is of them founding that company is usually them doing it for the first time. Like they're a newcomer, they're an interloper into
Yep.
the space, and they don't have any of the baggage going into
Oh,
that space.
that's yeah.
And I
That's
thought that was really interesting. I'd love to explore that a little bit more.
it's interesting because I still apply that principle now.
Mm.
If we have a problem to solve, if I'm trying to solve a problem, I'll bring a group together, and I purposely don't share with them any of my thoughts or ideas. Or if I'm bringing in outside consultants to work on something, they're going to come in and say, "All right, we want to dig into, learn everything we can." Whoa, 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 stop. Here's the problem that I'm trying to solve. Before you dig into anything here, take a quick pass at it. I want them to creatively look at a problem with no input. No, because the minute if I'm trying to design a new component for our system and I bring in some guys to help me, if I show them how far I am, once they see what I've got, they build from there. Their creativity is forever jaded because they saw a prototype. If I come in, bring them in, don't show them anything and saying, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. Give me a couple of ideas. Now they're coming at it with nothing. And some of the ideas may be nuts, but at least you're getting unfiltered creativity. And that's kind of when we came into this space, it was the same thing. We didn't say, here's the problem. How do we, here's what they're doing. Why are they doing it wrong? How can they change it? We just looked at it saying, what's the problem? The problem is it's a very dynamic environment. Things are changing a lot, but the equipment they use doesn't change well. Okay, so we should design a system that doesn't need to be changed. And that's, so we started looking at how, that was kind of the mindset to it. But when you're faced with a problem, it's so quick now with AI, with all the online capabilities to look at solutions. Sometimes I think it's better to just sit and spend some time with the problem and a piece of paper and a pencil and map out how you'd solve that problem in a couple of different ways and build on that first, because you can only do something for the first time once. And the minute you bring in outside influences, it will change you. There's a point where you may need them or you have to get them, but spend some quiet time solving whatever the problem is in a bubble. Get your head
Mm.
around it really well, then go out. And I just think it produces a better result for whoever, for the person trying to solve the problem, as opposed to getting all this input and all of a sudden now you're going 20 different directions.
Yeah, so properly framing the problem.
Mhm.
What does that look like for you? Yeah, beginner's mind is the default when you're new. And then it immediately becomes a practice and a skill when you're still in the space
Yeah.
for so many decades. And I'm interested to hear, is there like a framework or something that you use to decompose a problem? Like when you start with like a new space, are you focusing more on, because I have this theory and I might be like running over my point by doing this, but one of the exciting things about AI for me is that it makes soft skills hard skills, because
Mhm.
soft skills are just hard skills that are hard to measure. But you can have an AI go through a transcript, and there are measurable units of like competency in how well you articulate something. They're called nouns, verbs,
Right.
adjectives, like the objects, like you abstract out those things. So I'm curious, like, how do you like break down a problem without leading the witness or like leading your team in the wrong direction?
I usually, if it's something I personally am looking at, focus on, I close my door. I sit alone at my desk with a piece of paper and I draw. Sometimes I just doodle. My brain's working. I'm one of those guys that, like, I'm in a meeting, people make jokes because you can look at my notes and it's usually a sketch pad full of just ridiculous drawings. It's how I bleed off excess energy or excess creativity. I just doodling, but I'm doing that, let my brain kind of get around something. I solve a lot of problems. I've always set up my home life and work life to have a 25 to 35-minute commute to and from
Mm.
my office. And that time driving is, I work through problems, and quite often I don't have music on, I don't have any audio on, and I literally talk out loud when I'm driving through the scenario like I'm giving a speech. And I talk my way into, you talk into a corner, that doesn't work. And I just let my creative side just kind of go and allow myself to be a little crazy or a little nuts or a lot of my ideas, I'll put them down, I'll present them to some of the guys here, and they're like, Tom, this can't work. Look at it. Oh, all right, it doesn't work. I have no ego attached to it. And I think that's, for some people in business, and some people solving problems, you can't have an ego. Every idea could be great or could be really stupid. Doesn't mean you shouldn't write them down.
I
I'm not
think
sure if
that's
that's a good answer or not, because it's hard for me to, I don't have a specific process other than I isolate myself first and try to come up with what I think is best for solving a problem. Then I present the problem to others and let them take their isolated shot. Then we all get together and compare notes.
I think that actually it's my podcast, so I'll just say you're validating my point about what creativity means.
Mhm.
How do you describe a creative person? Is a creative person, it doesn't matter if they're good or bad at being like the outcome is has
Right.
nothing to do with being creative. A creative person is prolific, is that they will simulate, and what you're talking about is simulation. Like you simulate all the different outcomes. You prototyping is a form of simulation. Creativity is just simulation in reps. Like you're making things, and it's an idea.
That's a really good way. It is. You're doing reps. That's exactly.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Now I do think though that I've talked to people here, I've spoke about it, is I believe that humans are born with pure creativity. Like a baby has nothing but pure creativity. When you look at little kids, they always say little kids say the darndest things. Kids say funny things because they have no filter. And then they go to school and maybe they say something goofy in class and all the kids laugh and you're like, oh, I better not say that again. And as you go through your life growing into an adult, you learn to conform. And then you get into college, maybe you're a frat, you're part of the frat, you want to conform. You get into your first job. What's the company culture? I want to conform. It's this whole thing about conformity. And I think we drive a lot of creativity out of people. I think everybody has the potential to be wildly creative. The challenge for managers or CEOs, leadership, is how do you harness creativity out of people that have so much structure to their lives, and they're working so hard to conform to the norms, they don't allow themselves to be ridiculous or to be crazy or to push an envelope. We do a lot of exercises here, like a brainstorming. My favorite is if you're doing a brainstorming session, and we don't do these as much as we used to. Maybe I should bring them back, but I get a small group, never a large group, small group for brainstorming. I'm saying, all right, guys, this is the issue we're wrestling with. I go, I want the craziest, stupidest ideas that you guys can come up with. Or actually, when I start, I'll say, give me some ideas. We'll set a timer for 5 minutes. We'll write down all the ideas they have to solve a problem. Then I'll stop the timer. I always use a timer for creativity. Your brain works better when it's under pressure. And then we'll break for a minute, come back. I'll set the timer for 5 minutes. Like, now, guys, I want the stupidest ideas. I want the craziest, nuttiest ideas. And that's the point where I'm driving everybody to laugh, to be loud, to be just to get people out of their shells and into their crazy personal self. And we write those all on a board, then pause and we look at the board and say, okay, guys, let's connect these. And then you look at the crazy stuff and the ideas they thought would work and start trying to say, how can we bring the crazy into the not so crazy to find a solution? And it doesn't always work, but sometimes you get these crazy epiphanies where it's just like, holy cow, this is ingenious. And
well, yeah. And you find that, and you find the ideas that are just so crazy they just might work, right? And
it's like that. I always tell everybody, most people, like they're taking a shower, they sing in the shower, or they're in the car by themselves. People do things they would never do in front of others. That's where I want to get. I want to get people into a zone where they're so comfortable that they can allow themselves to let creativity out that may be stupid, maybe nuts, maybe you have to be vulnerable to do that. Most people aren't. There's a lot of corporate training about vulnerability and all this stuff, but you can do it at a granular level too. It's just getting people into that state. I think we're pretty good at it. When you work at Secure, the first thing there's a couple of things I tell everybody, but one of the things, we are the band of misfits. And I tell everybody, look, we're a band of misfits. None of us belong here, but here we are. I'm a guitar player, CEO. I'm a heavy metal musician. Everybody here is from somewhere else, from some other thing, and we've come together to form this amazing little company. And this, we do a company events. Everybody's wearing a shirt that says Band of Misfits, Band of Misfits. I drive on that because I want people to feel like, yeah, we're different. We are the group we're outside of the norm. We are the special group. And I think it allows people to just put their guard down and share more, get more involved. And so far it's worked very well.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing in your facilitation style, it sounds very similar to what a lot of the best music producers do. And the job of a producer is to help organize the album and give the musician space to explore and try a lot of different things and use their taste. The producer uses their taste to help direct the artist. Right. And when you have a bad producer, usually the albums aren't that good. And so like actually Rick Rubin, when the guy that wrote The Creative Act, is that creative people, you have to have systems in place to be creative. It's a practice and it requires a lot of reps. And he went on David Senra's podcast recently and talked about and surprised David Senra by saying he was lazy. I'm actually really lazy. Most of the time when I'm in the studio, I would rather be somewhere else. I'd rather not be there. I'd rather be like walking on a beach or hanging out with my family. But he's addicted to that breakthrough moment. It could be 2 weeks of trying to work out one bar of a song and nothing's happening and nothing's working. You're trying out the 100 iteration. Yeah. And then the 101st first iteration, there's this breakthrough and they're like, yep, that's it. And you get one chorus or something like that. And that's enough to get me to go to the next working session for another few weeks. And then I get another breakthrough and you're waiting for these big dopamine hits. And that's what I hear is when you have a really creative company, there's usually someone that kind of plays that archetypical role of the producer where it's like, hey, our job is to create a business, an album, an offer to sell people.
Yeah. Everything you've hit on there goes right back to the guy with the chisel and the stone. It's the same thing. You're getting those reps in and business success is very similar to, I was a practiceaholic playing guitar. and you'd work on a difficult piece and work on it, and you're not seeing any results. All of a sudden, one day you can play it. We'll do marketing efforts and sales efforts, and you're banging your head against the wall, and you're doing, all of a sudden the company's selling 15% more. And it looks like it happened in 2 months, but it didn't. Work is linear. Results come in steps. If you look at, like, I can look at our during our big growth years, our big growth times, it's not linear. It's the effort is linear. The work, everything we're doing is a linear path, but the results go in these steps. All of a sudden, we're selling 20% more per month. It seemed like it happened overnight, but it didn't. To the outside people, they're like, wow, you guys did something really changed. So, no, actually, we ground away at this thing for almost a year. And when you believe that you are correct in what you're doing, you need the patience to keep grinding. You got to make that 100th or 1,000th hit on that stone before it's going to crack. The other side of that is you got to have the other person involved. Like for me, I'm high energy, creative, a lot of drive. I do have people that work in this organization that are my check, and I listen to them, and they're hired with, these are top level people. They look, and I tell everybody, all my senior guys, in a vacuum, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, and I'm going to do it really quickly. The problem is I'm wrong. I make a lot of mistakes. So I need you, if you feel I'm wrong, say, Tom, stop. This is not going to work. And we'll sit and talk about it. Sometimes I'll say, you know what? I'll win them over. Other times say, you know what? You're right. Let's not do it. But you do need to have the check and balance, and you need to respect those people and allow them to blast you a little bit. Allow them to stop you sometimes. Because I do drive off cliffs. I'm a big believer in fail fast. Success is your ability to fail really quickly and learn from it. And don't drive a failure too long. You're driving on a road, you come to a V in the road, you've got directions to some party or something. All of a sudden there's a V in the road that's not on your map. You have 3 choices. You can go right, you can go left, or you can stop and try to evaluate it. The guy that goes right, maybe that's the right path. He's the first. The guy that goes left, he's going the wrong way, but he'll course correct. The guy that stops is the last one there. Don't stop. Just course correct. Fail, recognize mistakes and course correct. But always, every day you're farther along. You just have to keep moving.
It's interesting they brought up Simon Sinek, so I'm glad that you did. Then he actually had one of his team members write a book called Find Your How. And he's a why person. You seem like a why person. I'm a why person.
Yeah.
And you intentionally have to staff your company with the how people that they are fine with drudgery. They just get their dopamine naturally. We don't need risk to feel something. It's a part of being a good executive is admitting you're wrong. Admitting that you don't know everything. There was a point when I hired a gentleman that owned one of my big suppliers. He sold the business and retired, and Secure was starting to really get some traction. I hired him for a 3-year contract. The contract basically said, teach me how to be a CEO, because I was a sales guy. And he came in, the first thing he said is, Tom, you can't come in every Monday and reinvent the company. Because I'd have so many ideas over the weekend. I'd come in, hey guys, let's do it. He said, Tom, you can't do that. And he worked here for 3 years. We worked together, and he was an amazing influence on me to better understand I can do all the creative stuff, but I've got to pace what goes into the company and really diminish it down to one idea every quarter. What's the best one, or just what's the focus?
Yeah, because you've got to. I'll steamroller over good ideas when I have the next idea, and sometimes you just have to. You know what? Let's let these ideas develop for the next 4 months. We're not doing anything new. We're just gonna let's focus on completing these, finishing these, getting or knowing that we're wrong quickly, and move forward. And that's. I don't know how you. I don't know if they teach that in business school or not.
Jeff Bezos has a very similar story where he had one of his executives tell him, "Hey, you have enough ideas to kill the company."
Yeah, I remember that interview. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a how person tell him,
Yep.
hey, you're overwhelming the employees, you're overwhelming the team with like
Yep.
all these new ideas and they don't know what you want. And so
Yep.
they're stressed and they're
I mean, I was absolutely there. It's and out of respect, they go along with it as best they can, and they like their
yeah.
job, they enjoy where they work, but you can really drive people nuts in a bad way. So and that's something that now COVID hit, our company went remote. After COVID, we stayed remote. I've got a building here, I've got a warehouse here that we don't use a warehouse much anymore. We've grown beyond it, but there's 3 people in this building and my whole staff is remote. That's actually helped a lot because I'm not bouncing off of all the people in the office. I talk to everybody every day, but it's almost a natural filter that in the case of Secure, I think it's beneficial. I miss having all the people in the office. I think you lose some dynamic creativity, but for us, for this company, having that barrier of distance, I think it's actually helping us.
Yeah, in tech, it's a good case study, a counterpoint against the whole. There's a lot of the proponents for coming back to the office are like the executives, but if the executives don't have this barrier between them and like the people responsible for actually executing the work, you get this lack of. There is a risk to getting that lack of focus
Yeah.
because just ad hoc like pass by comments, like it doesn't control like your exposure to new ideas. And like I've noticed that it's been a lot. COVID hit, it was a lot easier to focus because I wasn't like hearing in like the break room like my boss saying
Yeah.
off comment things that I wanted to like make him happy or oh go work on this idea. Another counterpoint that you give is like, it's almost like you don't want. Steve Jobs started 2 companies after being kicked out of Apple. One was Next, which he micromanaged, and it almost died until like he was humbled enough by the experience to let go of control. And then the one that made him a billionaire was Pixar, which was like north of the bay and like far
Right.
away, and he
Yep.
couldn't effectively micromanage. And he was actually very hands off on that business. And that's the one that made him a billionaire. And so it makes you think like, hey, maybe the executives, if your job is to like basically operate the business and to like hire, mostly your job's hiring talent, allocating capital to initiatives, it might actually be a good thing to give a focused outcome for the quarter and then just let them cook and then just be there as a sounding board.
It probably is. I mean, the way we structured this company, I completely stay out of operations. It's not what I mean. I'm a marketing sales guy, so I run the marketing, and I've got people that run the day-to-day operations of the company. I'm really out of. I mean, I'm aware of what's happening, but I don't sit in any of those meetings. We have our senior weekly meeting, which we go over. If there's an issue, we process it. But I spend 95% of my time on marketing and sales because that's what I'm good at. And I staff everything else because if I get involved in operations, I'll drive them nuts. It's not how my brain works. And I recognize that with the help of some others. I said, Tom, no, you need to be here. And I'm much happier doing it this way. I think everybody else is much happier doing it this way. Another piece of remote workforces, and I've been asked this by many people, say, Tom, but your people are remote. How do you know if they're even working or not? And that's a big concern for a lot of executives and owners, I think, on a remote staff. But I tell everybody I hire, basically, I'm not paying you to work. I'm paying for results. And that's what we expect. We expect to get results. And we run our company using EOS, which is a management system, and it's pretty much built-in accountability. Everybody has their rocks, their things that they have to get done every quarter. And if somebody's not getting results, we see it right away. But we've never had an issue, not in years, where we've got somebody who's working remote, but barely, they're in the meetings, but not doing anything. We've not had that issue at all. But I think the EOS system helps a lot with that.
And even if those people are in the office, it doesn't change who they are. They just do more performative work in the office.
Yeah.
Change anything. It doesn't change the answer that they're probably not the right team member for this company.
Yeah.
And no matter how, there's no amount of policy that can make someone a fit.
No, and we've like, fail fast, we fire fast. I mean, it sounds harsh, but a wrong fit is a wrong fit for everybody, the person involved as well. And we've had people that were good people that weren't right for us. And people say, Tom, but he's such a good person. I said, look, he's holding us back and we're holding him back or her back. They've got a career path, the right fit for them. They're going to be a superstar. It's just not here. And, I use the term freeing up someone's future, because we all have one. And if you're in a bad fit, a bad company situation, somebody's got to make a change, because some people will sit in a bad situation for a whole career. And I've known many people who have had careers that they weren't happy, but they just were too afraid to move.
Yeah, and sometimes the best career stories are when your hand is forced, like you get laid off. And in sports, like there's so many examples. Oh, actually, we'll use a death metal example. There was like the first, I think, guitarist in Metallica was kicked off the team, kicked out of the band.
Mustaine, yeah.
Yeah, I made a calculated risk that you know, and you knew the name, so I'm like, okay, cool, this worked. And
they both went on to have great careers.
Yeah, what was the band that he
was
founded?
Megadeth.
Yeah, so he did Megadeth. Like, it wasn't a bad career, like.
No, I mean that was I wasn't into that music at that time. That was 5 years. I was 5 years too old for that, we'll say. I was back in the Judas Priest, Iron Maiden days. That was my heyday. But
but like it's not like he stopped being a guitarist or a musician. Right. He just founded a band that like he was a better fit with. And I've seen that all the time. I mean, I've worked at companies where I'm like, I gotta go. I'm not like, I'm hurting the company being here. And I would say like I'm a great employee and I was drive great results, but it was just where the company was going. I just wasn't the right team member, and I opted out and thrive somewhere else. Tom, do you feel like there's anything that hasn't been said that should be said before we sign off?
I mean, we've covered a pretty broad list of ideas on creativity and business development. I don't think so. It's life is short. Don't watch TV. Get up every day with a plan. I don't know. I'm so excited about. We're in a tough market right now. My industry is down 56% over the last 3 years. Our sales are flat. We got slight growth in a very down industry. You could be concerned about that. I'm actually very excited about what we're doing, where we're going. Having a flat market for us is driving us to do things differently and do new things and try new things. And that's what I like to do anyhow. So it's the next couple of years are going to be pretty exciting, I think, for Secure-It.
That's awesome. Tom, how can people find your work? And
Google Secure-It. We come right up. Google my name. I'm all over the internet. And we've got a pretty big digital footprint.
Yeah, and your name is spelled, so Tom, that's easy. Last name, it's
Kubiniec.
Okay.
And there's a lot. Yeah, we've got people can find us pretty easily. Hopefully they like the story.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and excited to continue watching it from the sidelines. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show. You have a good one.
I will do it. Thank you very much.
Hey, listener, thanks again for listening to The Way of Product. As we power down today's session on the fusion of creativity and technology, let's solidify the energy you've gotten from our dialogue today. If you've gleaned insights or strategies that could turbocharge your projects, I have a small but powerful ask. Swing by the platform where you're hearing this and leave a review. Think of it as your digital high five to us. It's a fuel that propels this content to more creative technologists like you, amplifying the impact of the shared knowledge. So until our next interview, keep pioneering and pushing the envelope. Thanks again for lending your ears and your imagination to our community. Catch you on the next download.